how could this be that a government would tell an opposition party leader, in order to get my vote, it's in the budget, and it was in black and white in the budget, and then reverse that within 10 days.
Well, I guess Elizabeth May is starting to see who Carney really is. Hey folks, welcome back to the channel. It's been a very interesting past few days in the news cycle. A lot has been happening with job loss, housing, budgets, cabinet shuffles, you name it. It's all pretty much happened in the past 2-3 days. So that's what we're going to get into. So without further ado, let's dive into the news. Now, before we get started, I just wanted to shout out a collaboration I did earlier in the week with another YouTube creator, Anita K, as I hopped on her podcast with her, and we talked about some of the major stories from the week prior. So if you're somebody who maybe doesn't really watch the news day to day, but still kind of want to know what the major stories are, I'd suggest you go watch it. Or if you're somebody who just likes good conversation, to watch good conversation happen, I would suggest you go watch it. It is on her channel, Anita K, capital K, no space. But I will leave a link as well in the description below if you want to go find that. As I said, we talked about a few different things like the MOU, the ostriches, and indigenous rights, stuff like that. So let me know if you guys enjoyed the format. Maybe we can make this a little bit more of a regular thing. With that being said, let's get back into the video. So yesterday, Elizabeth May went on the CBC's Power and Politics and basically admitted that Carney is not trustworthy. His word means nothing, and she has no confidence, will have no more confidence ever again in the Carney government, and won't be voting for anything that they put forward, because he told her something in the House of Commons when she proposed her questions. He said, yes, we were sticking to the Paris Agreement. She agreed to support his budget. 10 days later, he reversed it. And this very much signals what happened with the Trump tariffs. He gets elected. He says that he's going to be applying reciprocal tariffs. At the same time he's doing that, he's also removing the reciprocal tariffs. And we don't find out about that till months later. But this is her, again, talking about her lack of confidence in him and how he's not a trustworthy guy.
So that was shocking. I don't know if the Prime Minister deliberately misled me, but what I can say without a shadow of a doubt is that the Prime Minister's word doesn't mean much to him. And it's the kind of shock that means I know I can't again think, oh, well, I can trust this government. I can trust this Prime Minister to keep his word. No, I can't. So I won't be voting confidence in the government again.
Now, to be fair, Elizabeth May is not actually telling us anything new. We already know all of this, but hopefully the liberal viewers of the CBC listen to her and start to realize that Carney's not what he's cracked up to be, because this guy, he's just riddled with conflict of interests. He says one thing, he does another. He loves the photo ops. He loves the optics of it all. I mean, just yesterday in the House of Commons, Pierre Poilievre called him out on that fake housing situation, which the mainstream media has finally reported on and basically exposed.
Mr. Speaker, the only thing that member built when he was the governor of the Bank of England was the housing crisis in that country. And then he built a tax haven in the Caribbean so he wouldn't have to pay the same taxes he imposes on the Canadian people. Our youth need homes, jobs, and hope. This Prime Minister only offers them broken promises and more sacrifices. He even held a photo op in front of a house that was dismantled after he left it. So here we have a Prime Minister whose houses disappear after he announces them and promises disappear after he makes them.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the House in that announcement was sent to Nunavut. Nunavut is one of the territories of this great country. Nunavut is more than just a place where you fly in, make a photo op, don't speak to the Premier of Nunavut. Nunavut is where we are building 700 houses under Build Canada Homes. Houses that are cheaper, houses that are more efficient, houses that work.
Now, that's all fine and dandy, but that's actually not what Pierre was getting at. It was the fact that you set up this whole show to basically pretend that you have modular housing being built and this is on the rise and we're moving, when in reality, Even the PBO just came out yesterday talking about how poor the housing starts have been. Now, they talked about this as well in the House of Commons, and Carney tried to rebut it by giving him another different set of numbers. But even the mainstream media reported on it and went along with what Pierre was saying. Take a look.
Showing off his construction chops has been a regular photo op for Mark Carney, accompanied by bold promises.
We will build at a pace not seen since the Second World War.
But a new report from the interim parliamentary budget officer says the Liberals are nowhere on track to meet the Prime Minister's lofty goals.
We estimate about 26,000 units will be created over the next 5 years.
The Liberals, who have previously sparred with the PBO, dispute the numbers, saying their spending will help build 86,000 units.
I think this is just the beginning, and we're going to deliver a ton of affordable housing, and we're going to leverage a lot of investment from across Canada to get that done.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
The report, political ammunition for the Conservatives.
Why won't he listen to us and stop building bureaucracy so that we can start building homes?
The great thing about being a lifelong member of Parliament is you've never built anything and you don't know numbers.
Numbers the Liberals don't dispute: a 56% cut in federal housing funding from 2025 to 2029, with multiple current programs expiring without replacement. That has leading housing experts saying Carney's goal of building 500,000 houses annually won't be met.
The last 2 years of the Trudeau government were more ambitious on housing than what we've seen from the Carney government.
While the finance minister is promising additional funding for housing in the future, the Liberals have already guaranteed massive increases to other key programs. A core Carney campaign message was wanting to build things at speeds never seen before, but the PBO's housing report is one of the first major indicators that Carney's promise isn't coming to fruition.
Now, I'm sure most of you heard about the drama that took place in the House of Commons yesterday, because shortly after this interaction, once Carney was done with talking to the leader of the bloc, he decided to get up and leave once Pierre was supposed to be questioning him again. Well, this led to some of the other Liberal members coming up and rebuting what Pierre was trying to put out there, especially about the 26,000 houses that are expected to be built. And one of those Liberal members was Gregor Roberts, the new housing minister. And he started to go on and on about how housing starts are up year over year. But this falls on the heels of a new report that just came out specifically for Ontario. But just listen to how bad the grading is. Out of 34 municipalities in the GTA and the Greater Horseshoe region, majority of them are all failing. There was only one municipality that got an A. Take a listen to this.
It assessed 34 municipalities in the GTA and Greater Golden Horseshoe region. 17 received an F and another 9 received a D, while the other 8 municipalities received a C or higher. The highest grade went to Newmarket with an A+. The City of Toronto received an F. The authors of the report also say the decline in new home construction has a direct impact on the city's labor market.
And, unfortunately, and I know this will sound odd, but housing became the #1 industry in the province, and it shouldn't be. And the reason for that is because, things really took off. The immigration numbers went right through the roof. There was a shortage of supply to begin with. And so we've ended up with this particular situation. And the reason why we've done this report is because there's all these announcements on new projects here and there and, the government getting involved and whatever else like that. Governments cannot replace the private sector. The private sector produces 95% of housing. So, we needed to put this into context, and it wasn't being done. Where do we stand relative to the targets that the government has set? And that's what this report does. It breaks those targets down by municipality, and then it says, okay, where are we at?
But this is what we see with the Carney Liberals. They create more bureaucracy. They try to get everything involved. I mean, you constantly hear them in the House of Commons talking about, the child program here or the food program there. We wouldn't need all of these government programs if things were more affordable in this country, if people made a decent wage. As you heard from Melissa Lantzman earlier this week, there was an article that came out from CTV. A woman who was making $200,000 income had to move to a little town because she couldn't afford anything in her own community. this starts to create fissures in families. You see your actual family a lot less because now you're a lot farther away from them. But it's the only way that you can actually have a life in the sense of you're able to afford something. And this is another thing that the report brought up was how much money actually is being taken out of the housing projects by the government. A large majority of the costs are just governmental costs, and Pierre has talked about this over and over again. But listen to to this part of the report.
Well, this is all going to depend on how quickly the government adjusts the costs that they've imposed on new housing. I mean, we measured that. We did it in another report, measured it at 36% of the total cost of new housing is taxes, fees, and levies. That doesn't include an inefficient approvals process where, over time it's taken longer and longer to get projects approved. That has a cost in itself too. And all these costs are borne by the consumer. I mean, the industry produces housing for a market. And in fact, we produce social housing too as well. We basically build all of it because we're the building industry. And these costs just got out of control. And that's because you got 3 levels of government, 4 if you add regional, all with their fingers in the pie. You've got mission creep there. You've had expanding regulations, people trying to fix everything at once. And the cost just got too high. And that's where young families and why young families are now leaving the area. We're losing talent. Some immigrants that have come here, really talented ones, are leaving. And that's all, it all comes down to the cost of housing. And housing, of course, is connected to well-being. It's connected to healthcare. It's connected to education. So we've got to get this right because we have to compete. We've got to compete with the U.S. and we can't compete with the U.S. when our cost of housing ratio to incomes is so much higher than theirs and so much higher than basically anywhere else except for Vancouver. And you don't want to compare yourself to Vancouver.
Now, isn't that interesting? He mentions how bad Vancouver is, and the former mayor of Vancouver happens to be Gregor Roberts, who is now our own housing minister. So he decided to make it disgusting and broken over there, and now he's going to have the opportunity to do that here with the federal government. Great choice by Mark Carney. But as you heard from the report, even the immigrants are leaving, the highly educated, the highly skilled ones. We have covered this in another video, but we are getting stuck with the low-skilled, low-educated ones, and there's so many that are coming in, we don't have enough supply for the demand. And now it's putting so much taxation on our medical system, the housing system, the job markets. All of these things are getting hit because we can't, there's no supply for the demand that's coming in. And now we are seeing other sectors, specifically the ones that are getting hit by the tariffs, falling apart as well. We just heard Algoma Steel laying off 1,000 people, which surprisingly enough, they had already anticipated to do this because of this green grift that Mark Carney's trying to push on everybody. This is Professor Ian Lee yesterday on, I think it was CTV, talking about how they were already expected to lose 1,000 people, but it kind of got accelerated because of the tariffs.
But the company received support, Ian, from both the feds and the provincial government. How is it that fund, that sectoral aid, did not protect these jobs?
I did some research for this because I wanted to get to the bottom of this, Akshay. Right. They made a decision accelerated by the Trump tariffs. There's no question he's lurking in the background here. But the company made a decision in concert with the government of Canada and the government of Ontario to accelerate the transition from a traditional steelmaking production process to an electric arc process. And the company announced on its website in March of 2025 that it would lead to 1,000 fewer workers with this new electric arc and much greener technology. So the losses were going to come because of that switch to a cleaner and more efficient technology.
So listen to that. Because Carney is pushing this green agenda, making these businesses more carbon conscious, and they decided to switch over to this green steel, they were already anticipating losing 1,000 workers. Now, Ian Lee does go on to say, as I mentioned, that Trump's tariffs and that whole situation accelerated this time frame. They were probably going to have at least another year before these 1,000 jobs were lost. But because of his green grift, people are losing their jobs. And I'll play the rest of the clip with him in a second, but we are also getting other reports about paper mills closing down, sawmills closing down. Just yesterday, I think one in BC, a mill closed down. So this is having a huge trickle-down effect, and you're going to listen to Professor Lee. We can't compete with the U.S. toe-to-toe like everybody says we can, and we need to get a deal.
Having said that, it was certainly accelerated up to a year sooner because of these the tariffs, these pernicious tariffs of 50%, which is just killing the demand for the steel of Algoma from the American market.
You know, Ian, I'm just curious, how often jobs lost in this way really come back for communities?
It depends. It really does depend on the industry. And I appreciate you asked that, because when you step back and look at the steel industry, the OECD outlook on steel for this year just came out a couple of months ago. They said it's pretty grim for 2025 and 2026. China is overproducing. They're dumping. There's some 15 actions around the world alleging Chinese dumping. They have something like 50% market share, and they subsidize up to 10 times as much as OECD countries. So yes, Trump is there. Let's not take it away from him, and the blame away from him. But the Chinese government is really distorting the world steel market by their excess production and their massive subsidization of steelmakers in China.
Ian, could I ask you about the fact that as we speak, there is no trade deal in sight with the U.S.? We heard what the Prime Minister had to say in regards to that just last week when he was overseas. How do you think this delay or this uncertainty continues to hurt our economy month over month?
I actually believe this is the biggest damage of all, because I keep saying this, Akshay, many Canadians think, hey, we're an equal of the United States. No, we're not. We're less than 2.5 trillion. They're 32 trillion. I mean, they're just this massive colossus. And we absolutely, much as it may offend some people, we absolutely must have a trade deal with the U.S.
Well, maybe somebody should tell Mark Carney this, because this guy seems to be trying to get a deal with everybody else, including China, but not the U.S. And as Professor Ian Lee had mentioned there, China is problem numero uno when it comes to the steel situation. And don't get me wrong, I understand we need to diversify our trade from the U.S. We can't be so reliant on a single partner. But in the meantime, get a deal done so that our sectors are not being demolished. I mean, you have these small towns or these towns where they are single industries, like steel, like mining, like automotive. I mean, take here where I live, for example, in Oshawa. When the plant closed down in 2018 or 2019, and then it didn't reopen for like another 2 years, it was a devastation. And it's still not the same as what it once was. In the 80s, obviously they had a lot more people working there. Now they have a fraction of that. And some would say that this has now become not so much an automotive hub, but more of, I guess, of a hospital, university type of thing. But it's hard for a place to pivot in order to kind of succeed. And Sault Ste. Marie, if you're going to have Algoma Steel leaving there, a lot of families, a lot of businesses are going to get hit. And they talk about this trickle down effect. You're saying it's 1,000 individuals who are losing their job. Think about everybody that's connected to those 1,000 people, like the small town businesses in the area that are being funded by the Algoma Steel, that allows these people to go buy stuff at those places, or just the families who rely on that job to get a good income. It's not just the 1,000 people that you're affecting, it's everybody around them. And I don't know if Carney really seems to understand this, because this guy lives in his little bubble. Now, he is going to be seeing Trump this week, I believe, sometime, because Trump is getting, I think, an award for FIFA. So, of course, something sports related. Carney's got to go there for that. But it's just getting to these points where a lot of these people are suffering and struggling. And I don't know how much more it's going to take before things just completely crumble. But with that being said, I'd love to hear what you guys think about all this. Let me know in the comment section below. And as always, I will catch you guys on the next one. Thanks so much.